Anyway, joining me right now, my titans of tumult. First, Robert Weiner, Democratic strategist, columnist, and former communications director for Clinton drug czar General Barry McCaffrey. He's also former chief of staff of the House Committee on Aging. Bob, good to have you back.
It's a pleasure, Alan. And speaking of the truth, page 3 headline of USA Today that the Tea Party searches from the IRS included liberal groups, and it was a generic search. And that's why Cummings wants to release the transcript and ISA refuses to because he doesn't want the truth. You keep holding on to that. I am developing
if that were the true breadth and depth of it all, then there would be zero controversy. We have right now also with us Amy Ridenauer, chairman of the National Center for Public Policy Research. So, Amy, apparently the president felt horrible about that, which apparently never really happened.
Apparently he did. I'll respond a little bit to what was just said there. First of all, this is an investigation, so we don't have to jump ahead and decide exactly what happened before it's over. But the left has been making a big thing today about the fact that the ISA committee has not released all the transcripts of all the IRS employees who have been interviewed. I'll point out 2 things about that. The first is, yes, of course, Darrell Issa is a Republican. Maybe he's doing that just because he's a Republican and it helps Republicans. Maybe. But there's a second thing that I think people who have been in investigations or seen them have to keep in mind, and that is when people are interviewed, they say a lot of things. For example, they might say, I think it was John Doe at headquarters who's behind this, or I think it was Mary Smith. And that's the sort of thing you really cannot release because you have no idea if it's true, and it's not fair to those individuals. So just to be fair, we can't be having transcripts of all these investigations being released at this time. If we have a proper investigation, if we continue it, and if we do it fairly, we will find out if there was a bias based on politics or political philosophy within the IRS or, for that matter, other government agencies. And if there was not, then thank God, because that's a good thing for a democracy and it makes it stronger. And if it is the case, then we can root it out and hopefully we'll move on and we'll learn from this.
Bob.
I would agree with Amy if ISA agreed to shut up until the investigation were complete. But if he's revealing drips and drabs, Cummings has the right to reveal the drips and drabs that show the guy who said, I'm the one who developed the search and I'm the one who organized it, and it wasn't from Washington. Cummings has the right to release that, and ISA does have no right to not release that.
But we know it's not all Cleveland. We already know that. Matter of fact, even the inspector general made that abundantly clear that you have.
You mean Cincinnati, by the way, but okay.
Forgive me, thank you. You have the Cincinnati office essentially pointing. You have the inspector general pointing out that the determination unit in Cleveland was very much working hand in hand with the technical unit in Washington. That fact invalidates all assertions that, in fact, it was all just out of the Cleveland office.
Matter
of fact,
you
Derek,
are being selective again instead of releasing the transcripts. And since when, Amy, do you have the right?
No. The selective argument doesn't work with what I'm talking about. There was an absolute, unequivocal, unambiguous assertion that only the Cleveland office had anything to do with this, and we have since found out that is way beyond the Cleveland office. Way beyond the Cleveland office.
You're cherry picking, which is what ISA is doing. You guys have no right to do that. What you do have a right to do is release it all and let the American people decide.
No. What they're doing, wait. What they're doing right now is they're giving out some as a way to provoke more testimony for more people at the IRS.
That's the reason.
Now, you may not like the strategy, but it does seem to be working to an extent because we're going to go ahead and share with people right now. Derek, if you please, let's go to clip 2, Stuart Varney. This is a host from the Fox News Business Channel. He pretty much sums up what everybody now knows is a general fact, but I like his style of summary, so have a listen.
Top deputy to Lois Lerner. Holly Paz handled 20 to 30 of these early cases where Tea Party people were asking for tax-exempt status. She says there was no action on many of these early requests for at least a year. So there was clearly some delay of Tea Party exemption status. But secondly, she says that during that time period, they were waiting for guidance from D.C. In other words, it did go higher up the food chain. This is not a case of just rogue agents in Cincinnati acting out of turn. They were waiting for guidance from D.C. Now, it's not a smoking gun. It doesn't point fingers outside the IRS, but it contradicts what Lois Lerner has said earlier. Lois Lerner said the line people did it without talking to managers. Holly Paz is contradicting that and saying, yes, it did go up the food chain.
It did go up the food chain.
Well,
Amy Ridenour, this
lovely
seems to be
statement.
indicating.
Transcripts, my friends, transcripts, so we can make the judgments because you have your conflicts of statements, the people who want to say what they want to say.
No, every investigation always has some dribs and drabs and leaks or whatever. In the final analysis, we're going to need to know the entire truth, but we have to know it within the context of additional testimony. Additional testimony not yet here should first be realized before the transcripts in their entirety can be released. Amy Ridenour, to you.
Absolutely. Everything should be released at the proper time when the investigation is completed. I'm a little surprised, frankly, that you're wanting to finish it all up so quickly when the bottom line is we need to get to the truth. Don't be so worried, Robert. If your guys are innocent, they'll be proven innocent. And if you're guilty, why rush it?
Not worried.
Bob, you're terrified, actually. You really are terrified.
I am so terrified.
You are terrified. You're absolutely terrified.
You guys are the ones that don't want to release the stuff.
I want it all released, but I want it all released. You can't have it all released till all is heard. How can you have it all released till all is heard?
What's out there now, because that's what ISA is making his judgment.
We have assisted me in the opining department, my titans of tumult, none other than Bob Weiner, Robert Weiner, if you will, Democratic strategist, columnist, and former communications director for Clinton drug czar General Barry McCaffrey, and also on board, Amy Ridenour, chairman of the National Center for Public Policy Research. We were listening, Amy, to the musings of the former Vice President Dick Cheney on Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace. Nobody is surprised at all of his take on this matter. What I think is surprising is that once you get outside the Beltway and you get away from hardcore partisans, a large array of Americans, regardless of their political stripes, are very, very annoyed at the IRS right now, because even if the party in power is to their liking and is doing these things against those belonging to the party they don't like, what about the precedent this sets for a future administration about whom they're not very fond, doing to them what they were okay being done to others? The precedent, in my estimation, I think is why the majority of Americans are very concerned about this, again, regardless of party affiliation. Amy Ridenour.
Absolutely. I'm not a big fan of big government, but I will say this, that when you want to have effective government, and I think everybody but the extreme libertarians do, you need to have trust in government. And the Internal Revenue Service is one of those agencies that almost all of us deal with. Yes, there's other agencies some of us deal with, many of us deal with, but the IRS is one that's almost universal. It's also extremely powerful. It can prosecute people and put them in jail. It can take their money out of their bank account. It can go to their boss and take some of their paycheck, et cetera, et cetera. We all know this. If we do not have an Internal Revenue Service that we believe is honest, and this is not only that has to be honest, but that the people believe is honest, there will be a massive loss of trust in government, and that will have tremendous negative impacts. Yeah, those of us who like small government, there might be a little bit of good stuff for us on the side because we'll be able to say, well, you don't really trust government, do you? But the truth is we want to be able to trust our civil institutions. It's very important that we be able to do so. I agree with those that want to have an independent counsel just because it will help make certain that everything is fine. But the bottom line here is we all have to stand together, Democrats, Republicans, liberals, whatever, and say we have to be clean here, we have to be clean on this next year, and we have to be clean on this 20 years from now.
Bob Weiner.
Well, first of all, you didn't mention, Alan, that I was the spokesman for the House Government Operations Committee for 6 years, the same committee that ISA now heads. I was the spokesman for it under Chairman John Conyers. When we did the investigation, we found that the Harrier jets that DOD was telling the American people didn't kill anybody, killed 8 people because a pilot called us and was a whistleblower. And then when we called DOD to verify, they said okay. When we called Cheney to verify, on the morning that we were on the way to the Today Show, he said, you're right, you can say that. And that's how you do an investigation. You verify it, and you do it in a matter of a couple of days, and you bring all the facts out, and you solve something. ISA wants to drag out something, and if your source is Dick Cheney...
A couple of days, Bob, I'm going to give you an opportunity to take back the couple of days reference, because when the Democrats were in power in the House and Bush was the president, any investigations they launched on him were never ones they expected to wrap up in a few days.
Well, we did.
And yet you want to now take the breathtaking level of violation inflicted upon the American citizenry by the IRS and think that should be wrapped up in a few days. whose purpose does that serve? Certainly not mine as a taxpayer, not anybody who really thinks the truth has to see the light of day. How can that all be done in a couple of days, Bob Weiner? Or do you agree with Elijah Cummings that this is all over with?
I agree with Cummings that the full transcript comes out and that the transcript shows the reverse of what
They can both leak all they want. Look, they can both leak all they want. I don't care. Let them both leak. In reality, the only thing that's going to matter is when all of the transcripts and all the investigation points are presented in the aggregate. That's the only thing that will ever matter.
Yeah, well,
as far as the time releases, I'm okay with both of them doing it. Elijah Cummings and Darrell Issa, Bob Weiner.
Cummings is going to release them all, and it's going to be very soon, and it's going to embarrass the hell out of the Republicans. But the point, Alan, if you're using Dick Cheney, there were WMDs in Iraq, pay for the war by itself, and it's going to take 2 to 6 months to finish the Iraq war. Mr. Dick Cheney, with his credibility, that's a sad story that's who you're using for credibility on this issue.
Well, by that measure, I shouldn't play a clip from anybody who's ever been known to lie to us. Let's see, who might come to mind? Oh, I know, Hillary Clinton claiming that she was ducking bullets in Kosovo when, in fact, she was treated with singing children with flowers. Bob, if you're going to have one standard for the vice president, your ass better have the same one for Hillary Clinton, Amy Ridenhour.
Yes. A couple of days is not enough time to do this. A couple of days would not be enough time to figure out who to interview, let alone line up the interview periods. And most of these people, at least I assume, are getting legal counsel before they even talk. One of the things that happens in investigations, and I know Bob knows this, but not everybody might, is that when you go in to talk to a government investigator, before you go in, you go over all the facts. You refresh your memory. You look at your old emails. You look at your papers. You make absolutely certain your memory is 100% correct. This takes a lot of time, but it also gives people a much more accurate result. It's just not possible to do this in a couple of days, not even a couple of weeks.
But you cannot deny the American people the facts. And the question is, what is
No one is trying to do so, Bob, and I don't know why you keep pushing that unless you're afraid of the results.
I was just going to say, what is Issa afraid of in releasing the full transcript?
There is nothing full to release yet. Hold on. Do I have to correct everybody on the Queen's English, Bob? Denotatively or connotatively? If you don't have all the transcripts from all the people who are going to be testifying then you can't release them all because the word all has not yet been fulfilled by the actions on the ground. So why bother insisting on that which is not yet available?
And Issa has no right to cherry pick from that.
Sure he does. He has the right, and so does Elijah Cummings. Both of them do. Bob, both of them have the right to give their targeted releases. We know that because they're both doing it, and they're doing so with impunity. So they're entitled to it. Who's stopping them? I'm okay with it. Let them both release as they do. Anything that continues the conversation, Bob, not even you can argue with somebody who agrees with you. I'm saying it's okay with Elijah Cummings releasing as long as you say it's okay for Issa. Why don't we have some reciprocity? Therein lies the test of the person who's really on board with the truth.
Cummings will.
They both are.
Won't do it, and Cummings will.
Let them release as they wish, in part. But the entire thing is impossible to release until they're all available. So I don't know. I have to reacquaint you with the Queen's English. Maybe I can do so at a later date. Not much time left, but it seems as if the trifecta of scandals are having a toll on the president's numbers. CNN alone has them at 45% approving, 54% disapproving. Fox News, which has always had them usually in the plus column, has 44% approving, 50% disapproving, and that's a survey that's comprised of both a Republican and a Democrat polling company. Amy Ridenhour, how much worse will it get for the president as it relates to these numbers?
Well, they probably will get a bit worse just because we're not seeing any particularly good news on pretty much any front, and there's a lot of bad news overseas, which I'm not necessarily blaming the president on, but the Middle East is a mess, and it's very, very scary. That said, the man has already been reelected. He is not spending a whole lot of political capital, some, but not a whole lot of it trying to push up his numbers. We probably spend too much time worrying about his numbers. Let's just hope that he's wise about his policy decisions. That's far more important.
Bob Weiner.
I don't have a good solution for Syria, Amy, and I'd be delighted to know what yours is. But when it's possible that Al-Qaeda's in the opposition and you're supporting them, what the hell are we doing over there? We haven't got a clue. And when Putin and Hezbollah are coming together on the other side in Iran, but you might have Al-Qaeda on the side of the opposition, what's the good answer?
If I had one, I'd tell you.
On that note.
Hey, Bob, what about these sagging poll numbers from CNN? 45 to 54. That's pretty rough. I don't think it's ever been
every
that bad.
president drops precipitously in the middle and toward the beginning and middle of the second term. That's not unusual. And watch the way, like Bill Clinton, that he exploded and came out with 70% popularity as he left office. So we'll see.
Yeah, he also exploded and said that Barack Obama doesn't really know how to govern correctly, and he's not a real president.
Yeah,
Clinton
comes
what was your response to that?
I want to see what Obama says about Clinton's presidency when he's gone, too, so we'll see.
Yeah, but